Good afternoon, Sunrise family. I'd like to continue our teaching on prayer and ask the question, does God answer prayer? Does prayer work? My answer is absolutely. I'd like to illustrate this by a recent trip that we just took. We became aware several weeks ago that my oldest brother Ed was very sick. We began to pray the prayer of Elijah, where he prayed fervently, earnestly. We prayed that God would direct us, and he seemed to say, go. So we took off on this trip to Fort Mojave, Arizona. On the way, we stopped, first of all, at some friends from college, and we exercised there the prayer of the harvest workers, where Jesus said, pray to the Lord of the harvest to send out workers. And we prayed fervently that God would send out workers into his harvest field. And then we traveled on down to Texas and then on up to Fort Mojave. But before we got to Texas, we began to pray this prayer of desperation that Jehoshaphat prayed when he was surrounded by the Assyrian army in 2 Chronicles chapter 20. When we were traveling on the freeway, a car went right by us, right into a ditch, right off the freeway. And we stopped the car and prayed, God, help this person. And I ran back, not knowing what I would find, and discovered that this young gal was okay. She wasn't sick. Her car wasn't wrecked, and her car had turned, so I was able to drive it out of the ditch right onto the shoulder of the freeway. A prayer of desperation. When we arrived at Fort Mojave, my brother at that point was in hospice, and we prayed for boldness. The disciples prayed in Acts 4 that to be able to share the gospel with boldness. And the hardest people to talk to, as you know, are your relatives. My brother was not talking at that time, but he could understand what we were saying. So I shared with him that Jesus is the resurrection and the life from John chapter 11, and he seemed to understand. We left their place, and 4 hours later, my brother passed away. We traveled on our way up to through Oregon and Washington, and all the way God gave us amazing visits with people. It was just like he carried us along. We were able to minister to our friends and family, and they were to us also. So we would say God answers prayer, and we need to be thankful people for all that he does for us. So I want to encourage you to pray. Pray fervently. Pray for harvest workers. Pray desperate prayers when you need help. Pray for boldness to talk about Jesus. And don't forget to be thankful. Thank you so much.